is going to be pretty exciting. I mean, especially very much related to the whole of India geography. If you ask me, like, the whole world is looking at India as the market, right? As we all know. So I think, I'm sure, if you can allow some couple of minutes for people to join in. But in the meantime, I would just set the cadence, how today's day is going to be. It's like we will have, about 30 to 40 minutes of presentation, and it will be interactive presentation. I'm sure I would appreciate if people can actually, unmute themselves and ask questions if you want to, or you can always use the chat box to pose your questions, and one of us will take it up later when the Q&A session is there planned at the end. So having said that, my request would be to just keep yourself, muted whenever someone is not speaking. And as you know that, consumer behaviors and insights into consumer behaviors is possible only when, people are allowed to talk in their best way. And I was told that, we always, human beings, think in our vernacular language or local language. I'm sure we have specialists out over here, and now I'm sure, while I'm going to pass on the whole virtual mic to them. But however, I wanted to just give an introduction here, right? And so again, welcome you all. Now I guess I'm sure we are live now. So on behalf of IncubateHub and Reverie, again, good afternoon to you all. Really appreciate you all having joined in today. What we have today is, a nice session from Reverie. I mean, Reverie Language Technologies was founded way back in 2009, right? And it's an AI-powered language technology company integrating voice, text, and video technologies to enhance the digital experience of non-English internet users in India. So they have worked with clients like, Urban Company, Titan I Plus, Trade India, Wink Music, and many, many more in multiple industries, including BFSI, education, media, and entertainment, and e-commerce. Now, today we have with us, Vivekananda Pani and Pranjal Nayak from Reverie, sharing their insights on, making your digital customer interfaces work for Bharat. And I'm really excited, something related to Bharat. As we know, Make in India or for Bharat is always most welcome topic in these days. Integrating voice, video, and text for multilingual strategy, and mapping digital customer journey through language enablement. Now, having said that, right, I would like to give a quick introduction about the speakers, our speakers today, because then that will have a background of relatedness for the audience also to be able to ask pertinent questions. Vivekananda Pani is the co-founder and CTO of Reverie Language Technologies. And with more than 20 years of experience in Indian language computing, he is one of the very few subject matter experts passionate and dedicated to making usage of Indian languages easy on digital platforms. And with him, we have Pranjal Nayak, head of engineering, leading the research and product development at Reverie. I mean, he has a decade-long experience in Indic language computing and has led the creation of various tools and technologies for Indian languages, starting from display and input technologies to NLP. And without further ado, I now invite Vivek and Prajal to begin this session and provide their valuable insight. The stage is yours, Vivekananda.
Thank you. Namaskar. That's a pretty generous introduction. Of course, the idea of Indian languages and Indian languages-led customer experience has been critical. But before I begin, I would like to give a 2 minutes introduction into how this realization comes into being in the first place. So when we started in 2009, our company Reverie, our objective was to try bridging the language divide in the digital medium, especially the internet. The internet in India itself was not so well spread as it is today, and we will come to that very, very quickly. So when we were starting up, at that time, we had a lot of difficulty trying to convince people that Indian languages will have a digital use, that there will be consumers and customers who would need to use their languages in the digital media. There were some, digital services, e-commerce, and several other things, web pages that people were accessing. But, everybody thought that it was only the English knowledgeable people who are willing to use any of it. Everyone else do not really need their languages, or if at all, they wouldn't be willing to pay for it. So there is there are no consumers and there is no business. However, we were quite convinced that India, with more than 1 billion people then, cannot practically grow as a large consumer base. And such a large number of people would need all the services. Adoption of technology and proliferation of the same will happen, but will all these people be able to be served in English alone? That seemed quite impossible to us. And so we continued working to bridge this particular language divide. So as we started, we have had a lot of learnings. We have seen businesses who wanted to implement languages as a growth hack, thinking that if I am able to do something in English today, and I have about 4 or 5% of the country's population as my customers, by doing 5 languages or 10, I should be able to grow that to 70% of the country. But those kind of thinkings actually needed deeper thought than that. So let's look at what are those some of the things that would actually play in, because multilingual or native languages is not an extension of English alone. It was about thinking about providing a native language user with what they would need right at the core, that is thinking Bharat first. Anyway, so let's look at what are the 3 things. So like I mentioned, when we started, there was no internet connection available across the country. Even the 2G network was extremely poor. The devices were primitive. They were not smartphones. Those were feature phones mostly. And those who were actively accessing the internet were doing it from the computers, from some cities that had the infrastructure. But the 3 pillars that are absolutely necessary, out of which 2 we practically have them solved today. That is, we do have devices that are capable of supporting Indian languages very well. We do have internet connectivity and data that is no more as expensive as it used to be earlier, and therefore there is great connectivity. In services and businesses can reach out to people. That one thing that is yet to be done well is doing that in their languages. So that's the 3rd pillar that we must be able to do well to be able to serve the large consumer base in India. So if we go to look at the parallels of what is the kind of contribution or engagement that has resulted in other media. So in media and communication, which reaches around 77% of Indian population, that contributes to around 2.8% of India's GDP. The telecom, or I would say the access of telephone, which has now reached 86% of the country's population, contributes to about 6% of GDP. That is, these industries are actually serving and employing, that brings out, contributes to about 6% of GDP. Whereas on the internet, there are 750 million people who are already on the internet and using. What is the GDP contribution of this particular segment? That is practically negligible. And that is majorly because we do not yet have enough services that are serving to this large number of people who are engaging on the internet. So inclusion would practically mean that this is the kind of potential that exists that we are not yet banking on. And the other media are examples well enough to tell us that if it is done well, then that is the kind of reach that we can get. We can go slide. So let's look at what exactly is digital first to digital only kind of a movement. So most of the services today still are trying to have a physical service and at the same time a digital interface. Majority of them are looking at making digital first, so that there is an additional service that is also there. So like Ratan Kesh from Axis Bank says that native languages or use of native languages basically simplifies their service, that is simplifying banking. And the Bharat experience basically is the game changer. Those who will be able to do it better will be the winner. And why should that be the case? That is because if we are looking at a non-English service only as a feature or an extension, then we would not be serving it really well, and therefore that would not engage the customers or consumers very well. Whereas if it is done well, then there would be a winning solution out there. Assisted plus self-serve customers. There are a lot of people who would not be able to take services even if it is in English or in a native language. But there is a lot more acceptance of people coming up if they are assisted at the same time, but the service is made available to them in their native language. Similarly, Shantanu Rege from the CEO of Mahindra Rural Home Finance. So he says, the consumer base can be of two major types: the 20% progressive Pradhan, the ones who are actually aspiring to be tech savvy and would like to use the latest, pretty similar to how many others in the developed world are also able to do. So they would like to adopt whatever that is made available. And then there are 60% who are cautious Kamla. So they have the ability, but they would not trust technology. They would like to take smaller steps. So therefore, they would be more inclined towards an assisted digital movement. Now, the digital movements cannot be avoided. They have been making all of the basically the pros of adopting digital is already obvious, but this particular movement has been happening rapidly. So native languages and digital. So native languages and digital, assisted digital, basically solves it really well for the consumers. The user experience, when we are talking about user experience, whether it is in one's native language or otherwise, actually has got any business will have the 6 different phases of engaging with a consumer. It starts with a particular customer or consumer being aware of a business or a service. And once awareness is there, they would be able to take a decision whether they would like to go for it or not. And then there would be an onboarding, that is, they would actually go for it. And then they would probably start engaging with it. As they start to engage with it, their engagement would largely depend on the kind of experience that they get out of it. Once there is a good experience, there is a trust that builds up, and because of which there is a cross-sell or an upsell that continues to happen, and strong loyalty builds up. Now, in this entire 6 stages of phases of a consumer's journey, a ball can get dropped anywhere and a customer can get lost. So right at the start, from the awareness stage, the biggest ice or the ice wall, I would say, practically can be the English language alone interfaces for most of the services that are available today. So breaking that and making it native to people builds a great deal of confidence and trust in consumers right at the beginning. So yeah, today with technology, a particular service can be offered in a native language, not in text only, but also in video and in voice. That is, one will be able to interact with a business or service by trying to speak to it. The system can speak back. There can be video that would that would help with the interfaces or in explanations. One will be able to search through, when we have FAQs and queries that people need to be answered. So all of these interfaces, including the eventual, business onboarding and engagements, can completely be in their native languages, be it in text, voice, or video. So with that, I would let Pranjal run us through a little more about, the technologies that go into this and some of our products and demonstrations of the same. Over to you, Pranjal.
Yeah, thanks, Vivek. Yeah, if we could move the slides, please. So yeah, so customer experience, right? So we don't really have a customer experience language playbook as such. So what I am going to do in the next 15 to 20 minutes is share some of our experiences and also tell what all Reverie does in a nutshell, without really getting into too much of the products and the technologies per se, how Reverie is helping businesses in reaching out to their Bharat customers, right? That's what I'm going to cover in the next 15 odd minutes. And in doing so, I hope that I'll be able to touch upon few points on how we can create the best or create a good customer experience for the Bharat users who are coming on to digital medium for the very first time. So Swati, if you can move. Yeah, so coming to Reverie. So Reverie is a made in Bharat company, right? So we are, all of our technologies are inbuilt and built in-house, and we only have centers in India. So we are 100% made in Bharat company, and we help businesses connect with their Bharat customers and try and provide a very seamless experience for the Bharat customers when it comes to connecting through any digital medium. So we work with businesses to enhance their customer experience with language technologies, as well as voice, for all the language and voice first customers across the different channels. As you can see, be it say your websites, mobile applications, your customer communications, which we do, we provide language services and products which can help localize these products and services, which will enable language first or Bharat users to use them seamlessly. We also provide voice-enabled bots, voice capabilities, voice and NLP capabilities for IVRs, which can help you providing better customer experience when it comes to your say onboarded or engaged customers already. So Swati, if you could move to the next slide. So Vivek touched upon on this slide a bit, so some of these aspects. So let's look at this again, right? From a customer journey point of view, from awareness to experiencing a brand, and then finally the brand being able to do some cross-sell, upsell, and then finally the customer becoming a very loyal customer, right? So Reverie actually plays a part in all these stages. Say, I mean, when you look at say your website, your marketing communications, marketing videos, chatbots or bots which you have deployed across different mediums, say bots which you have deployed on your website, which are your first say tools to create awareness about your brand, right? So Reverie can help in bringing localization to all of this, and we have an experience of doing it for a large amount of time right now. And these localized experiences actually enable the Bharat users to understand about what the brand is doing, and then help them do connect, help them connect with the brand, basically what the brand is trying to do and how the brand is trying to reach out to its customers and sell to its customers, right? So when you talk about Bharat users, unless you have done this part right on whatever or the sort of effort that you put in creating awareness for your English users, right? So sort of marketing efforts that are being put in to make the brand known within the English users. If a similar sort of effort and say outlook is not given for the Bharat users, we have typically seen that just doing a simple localization or a conversion of the content does not always solve the purpose. So that's one small learning from whatever we have worked with different companies we can give you here. And once you are once a business onboards the Bharat users as well, right? I think there are other mediums. Your website continues to be a medium for the Bharat users to engage, and of course the amount of communications and all which are happening from the brands to the customers, those kind of increase, and Reverie helps in managing the helps in managing the experience for the Bharat customers here, because Reverie helps the brands even in localizing these customer communications and outreach messages, as well as personalize them with the use of some of our technologies as well, products and services. So as I spoke earlier, we also help create right customer support experience through our IVR and call center with the use of voice and languages which are developed specifically for Indian language users. Yeah, so I'd like to play a small video where, and I'll come to it. I'm not sure if the audio is playing.
Is it not audible, Pranjal?
Now it will be, I guess. I think you had muted.
Okay. Because I did full screen. 1 minute.
We can't hear.
You can't hear.
Yeah, Pranjal, you were saying?
Yeah, you cannot mute in here, Swati. Otherwise it will not.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I will. Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
नमस्ते, मैं निम्नलिखित सेवाओं में आपकी सहायता कर सकती हूँ। कृपया आगे बढ़ने के लिए कोई एक विकल्प चुनें। शेष राशि जांचें। आपके खाते में उपलब्ध शेष रुपए हैं 90,000.0। मैं आपको मनी ट्रांसफर या सामान्य पूछताछ में अधिक मदद कर सकती हूँ। कृपया आगे बढ़ने के लिए एक चुनें। पैसा ट्रांसफर करें। नमस्कार नेहा, कृपया मुझे उस व्यक्ति का नाम बताएं जिसे आप पैसे ट्रांसफर करना चाहते हैं। राधिका। कृपया लाभार्थी के विवरण की पुष्टि करें। हाँ। कृपया हस्तांतरण के लिए राशि बताएं। 10,000 रुपए। कृपया हस्तांतरण करने के लिए राशि की पुष्टि करें। राशि सही है। 10,000 रुपए सफलतापूर्वक राधिका को ट्रांसफर किए गए हैं। क्या आप और अधिक लेन देन करना चाहते हैं? जी नहीं। बैंकिंग डेमो को चुनने के लिए धन्यवाद। आपका दिन शुभ हो।
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Swati. So yeah, see you could see on this. I mean, stay on the yeah. Yeah. So you saw in this video like how somebody could converse very easily and do certain banking transaction. It's obviously a demonstration of the capabilities, but I mean, what I wanted to show here or tell the message here is that, see, speech as a medium comes very naturally to us, right? It is probably the first medium using which we all communicate. I mean, we start to learn to speak first, and then we start to write, read, and stuff like that, right? So for all the Bharat, for bringing Bharat users and enabling them to have a rich experience on digital platforms, integrating voice in the interfaces will be a big step. I mean, and wherever possible and wherever it can be seamlessly integrated, giving a voice as a medium of interaction and interface will go a long way in giving a good customer experience for the Bharat users. And we at Reverie can help businesses provide a comprehensive voice experience to their customers by using our technologies. I've listed those here by using some of our technologies like speech to text, text to speech, and natural language processing. So we can help the customers adopt voice for their interfaces, and which can then enable its users to use those interfaces much better. Yes, I think I can move. So yeah, coming to some success stories of ours. Next. So yeah, so we talked about localizing website, which can help in awareness and then on onboarding as well. So here I'm showing snapshots from websites localized by using one of our products called IncubateHub, which is a website localization product which helps websites localize by a seamless integration of a small JavaScript snippet into the websites. And these are some examples of websites who have localized. Fino Bank is one. Another one is Malik. Can we move on? Sorry. Then we've also localized for MPL and Tata Motors. With Tata Motors, they once integrated and went live, they saw 10% of the page views that they had in English already appearing in Hindi within the first month, and it's growing as we go along. And with MPL, they not only went ahead and did the localization for their website, they also went ahead and did localization for their mobile application, because they wanted to create that seamless experience for their users, where they could use, all Bharat users could use their application and website both in Indian languages basically. And they have seen an uptick in the usage as well. So, but you can move on. Here is a demonstration of a app localization that we had done for Mahindra Finance. And one key takeaway I wanted the audience probably to note here is that what they did and what we actually did in consultation, basically what Mahindra Finance did in consultation with Reverie was that they put in the language screen right at the start of the application, wherein they brought in the change that before login, we will bring in a change in terms of the language screen, which enable the users to use the application in their own languages. So these are some, say, tricks or hacks that can be done in terms of interfaces, which can enable Bharat users to find it easier to use, use digital mediums and get acquainted to them. Yes, Swati. So this is one interesting use case. So we work with a customer called Boonbox, who provides products and services to consumers who live in tier 3 and tier 4 towns and villages. And generally the customer persona is that they buy products in the range of 2,500 to about 8,500. And this company, Boonbox, has a pretty massive scale, and they mostly do it through field agents and stuff like that, right? So for them now to reach out to more and more customers, what Reverie and Boonbox joined together to do was that we created a WhatsApp-based multi-language bot, where you could actually place orders for products, and they launched it in English and Tamil, and they've seen good traction of it, and then are in the plans of making it in different languages and going big with that. So these are some of the things which some of our customers have done, and we've kind of got in some learnings, like WhatsApp today becomes one of the mediums for customers to reach out to, for brands or say enterprises to reach out to their customers, and localizing the WhatsApp bot experience, because all of us are on WhatsApp. I think we can safely assume that all of us are on WhatsApp. So localizing a WhatsApp bot experience or a WhatsApp buying experience to WhatsApp, I think those can go a long way in giving a good customer experience. Yes, I think move on. I'll play another video.
Welcome back, and this is lecture number 52. Today we'll be talking about this first order differential equations, and mainly we will consider first order and the first degree differential equations and their solution techniques.
तो वापस स्वागत है और यह लेक्चर संख्या 52 है। आज इस फर्स्ट ऑर्डर डिफरेंशियल के बारे में बात करेंगे और मुख्य रूप से हम फर्स्ट ऑर्डर और फर्स्ट डिग्री के डिफरेंशियल इक्वेशंस और उनकी सॉल्यूशन टेक्निक्स को कंसीडर करेंगे।
So this is a snippet from a video that we localized from English to multiple languages. We put in the Hindi snippet here for all of you to listen to. So Reverie, through its products and partnerships that Reverie has over a period of time, we are able to do a lot of content conversion as well as say video localization sort of work in a very small amount of time. So we have the ability to do a large amount of localization work which needs services, and that is powered by our technologies as well as the power of our partner network, which does the heavy lifting for the services. In this case, we actually delivered 2,750 hours of localized video in a time of just 75 days.
So,
that's right.
So Pranjal, just a quick one, in
Sure.
terms of if you would like to share how many languages you generally cover on the localization part, and how do you handle end-to-end localization typically, if you can share.
Okay, so generally, mostly we work with 11 languages, although we are capable in delivering for 22 official Indian languages, but we generally work on 11 Indian languages, and then we have a AI-powered tool. Basically, we have a AI-powered project management tool, which helps, through which we can do the conversion of content in different formats. Basically, the tool takes in different formats as input, and it retains all those formats when the processing is done. And within the tool, it is like a computer-assisted translation tool, right? So once you have say I'll take it now through an example. Probably once you have an HTML file, right? So you upload that HTML file onto that tool. Now, once you upload that HTML file, the content of that HTML only needs to be converted, right? So the content gets extracted. Now, once that content is extracted, then there is a layer of AI which works on it, and translations are done on that content by machine. And once that machine output is produced, for most of our enterprise level clients, they want it to be vetted by people who are experts in those areas, right? Or say translators who have the expertise in converting those sort of content. So we marry technology along with services. So we have the technology as a first, which gives the first level content, and then there are experts, which are language experts who come in and do the final proofing, editing on that content, and again the auto compilation, recompilation of the files in the similar formats and all happen, and then those can be passed on. So that's how we do. And for that manual part where we needed language experts and all to come on, it is all managed on our platform, and the name of the platform is Prabandhak. And on that platform, and we do have partnerships with a lot of language service providers, which are as a part of our network. Basically, we have them as a part of our network where we can leverage them and do all these big scale projects in a very small amount of time. And the beauty of using a automated tool, right? So beauty of using an automated tool is not only that it makes things faster, but it also keeps in coherence in the content, basically. So what we can do, just to give an example, so what we can do, like water if we want to translate water as jal or water as pani for any say level of content, whether it is being translated by or whether it is like being proofread by 10,000 people or 50 people, right? If we set it in the platform that water has to be converted to jal for this project's purpose, then it will always be coherent across all the content that has been done within that project. So apart from having the agility, it also gives you that coherence throughout projects. So that's the beauty of using, say, tools and AI in doing projects which still need, say, human intervention.
Got that. I mean, that's how I think even the dynamic data gets handled then with your tools. That's what.
Yeah, the dynamic data, most of the time, the dynamic data gets handled automated. We have a technology called transliteration, which can convert any dynamic data, say your name, right? If your name needs to be converted into Hindi, or say for that matter, Tamil, Telugu, it's just a conversion from one script to another. Right now, your name there, which is displaying on the screen, is written in Roman script, right? Now, once I need to convert it into Hindi, it won't change. I mean, there's no meaning of Uday which will come out. It will still be Uday, right? It will just be written using Devanagari characters when I'm talking about Hindi. So we do have a technology which can do that real time, and it is pretty fast as well as pretty accurate. And for those sort of dynamic data, we do it real time always. We don't have an intervention layer of human doing a proofing or an editing in 90%, 99% of the cases.
Great. I mean, as you know, we have been working with you closely. It would be useful, I guess, in terms of how you have this, whole voice use cases delivered, as well as how does the training happen, right? And if you could share a little bit more.
Right. Maybe we can just finish the slides, and I'll touch upon that. Is that fine, Uday?
Oh yeah. Please.
Probably need just 2-3 minutes. I guess we just have 1 or 2
Perfect.
more.
Perfect. Yeah.
So yeah, so Swati, next slide. Yeah, so I mean, just coming to the end of it. So let's just join hands and make sure that we serve our nation, serve the people of our nation well. And these are, I mean, these are some of the logos that we have worked with. These are some of our clients. Some of them are current clients who we are working with. Some of them we have already delivered something and are in process of doing more things. Yeah, so I think last slide. Yeah, so right, so localization, right? So localization is being considered as the next big bet, right? I mean, everyone is being very gung-ho about localization and localizing and say converting things into one language, into different languages, and then people are expecting that just localizing will give success, right? So I mean, there's a message behind the picture here. So it's not going to be enough to just localize or just convert the content or stuff like that. So we'll have to, like how brands would or how, say, enterprises would give a lot of thought in terms of customer experience for English users, right? We will also have to start thinking in the same sort of lines when we are talking about the Bharat users. So I'll just give a very simple example, something like a login, right? So login through an email may be something which is very, very comfortable for an English user, but login through a mobile number is probably something which is more specific to a Bharat user. So it is not enough to just get the customers to experience localization or to just provide the localization, to make sure that the experience is such that they can really experience it well. So that's the last message that I wanted to give. Yeah.
Awesome. I think.
Right. So I can take your question, whether I probably was a little bit in the thing. So I can take your question right now. So yeah.
Happy. I mean, audience, anyone can unmute and ask. Launching a poll shortly, then we can take up maybe the questions as well. However you would like to go to. You want to have first questions, Shaman or Prut? We could.
No, you had some question, Uday. I'd like to answer that probably. I didn't catch the question properly, so maybe I can answer that. If you can ask the question again, maybe I'll try and answer it.
So there is an input I would like to give here, that the last slide that we produced, it was one of the things that we started off with, where we said that when the industry thought that English users will use the internet and the digital medium, the non-English users will not. The fact was that when we, when you don't serve it in the right way, then there is obviously no way that somebody can consume it. So the fox and the stork story, which we have all known, is practically the right kind of an example. When the internet is being served in the wrong plate, then it is natural that the consumers will not be able to consume it. I would also like to mention one more thing, that in various businesses that have tried doing multilingual, but have tried doing it very late, there has been one particular thing that we must look at as consumer behavior. So the experience, no matter whether it was difficult or it was easy, habit will always lag the growth that is happening or the changes that happen. For example, you and I will probably continue to try doing the way that we have done things, even when things would have changed in terms of technology in the future. So there were some platforms that implemented local languages recently, and they found a huge uptake of their platforms within the age group of people who were less than 30 years of age. And they saw that beyond 30, say 35, 40 years of people and older, they were not using their platform as much. So they thought that why would young people want to use local languages and not the elderly? Their survey then found out that when internet came to India, and the people who are already in their late 30s or 40s, they started using internet in the cyber cafes and through dial-up connections or whatever that was available to them at that point in time. The time when internet itself had no local language at all. So therefore, they have got used to an internet only in English language. Even though they may be familiar and may have used in the in the physical medium, they may have used their native language. On the internet, they were no more willing to move to native language. Whereas the young population, which is actually the growing mass of internet users, were unintroduced to the English only thing, and they were willing to accept or at least try looking for their language solutions. And that saw phenomenal growth in that. So I think there is a large amount of user base that is actually waiting to start using, as long as we are willing to offer that to them in their native languages.
Awesome. I think, Vivekananda, that was very, very insightful, and I'm sure the audience would really love to know this, whatever you have shared. And because, obviously that's where my curiosity always has been from many, many years, right? Since the time I started using even the pager or even the mobile phone, is that, can I just use my voice, right? Rather than typing, right? I used to get bored typing. And so that's what was my question in terms of the delivering the voice use cases. How do you go about? And then also in terms of how does the training happen, right? So that you're able to deliver it much efficiently.
Sure, I will touch upon that one very quickly, and Pranjal can add if there is more. So so training for Indian languages is has not been trivial. That is because Indian language, or when we say machine learning, we need a large amount of data to be able to train. And not just random data, large amount of relevant data, clean data is necessary to be able to train. When I say clean data, it is not necessarily the data that we synthetically create, but the way people actually will speak or say or use, right? And since on the internet, we haven't had many Indian language users for such a long time, the availability of such data is abysmal or near zero. So we have struggled in building data, or oftentimes in improvising our algorithms to be able to deliver great output with very little data that we are able to train with. So often, many times, it is our innovative ways how we process and create solutions that can be trained in with very little data and can still give very high accuracy and throughput to different businesses.
Thanks. That was right. I mean, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask. This is the time. I think we are open for questions. Well, I am always curious. I will continue to ask.
So I think we don't have any more questions now.
Okay, so I mean, I will just keep it on because we still have a few more minutes. I am seeing my clock, but if you can just, many times the context gets lost, right, in translation. How does Reverie mitigate that? I mean, if you can throw a little more light. I know, don't want to take much time, but if you can quickly share.
Okay, so yeah, context not only gets lost, context can go wrong even with human beings. So many times I like to give this example. There are infinitely many examples, but I would like to give one. So let's say if you say this is a good sentence, and you would like this to be translated into a different language. So if a user says this, so what is it that we will mean out of this? This is a good sentence in Hindi. Probably you would say, yeah, ek acha vakya hai. Right? Will anybody dispute that? Probably nobody. But if the domain is a legal domain and it was about a verdict, so a good sentence, this is a good sentence would probably mean कि यह एक अच्छा फैसला था. So what I mean is that sometimes even to human beings, without or in the lack of context, a thing particularly would appear obviously correct and only in one way. Whereas this amount of context will never become available to machine. The amount of context that is available with humans will never become available enough with the machines. So I must say the machines will never be able to do 100% expected output as human beings would want. So yes, there is a large amount of disambiguation that we do based on the domains. So we do domain-specific trainings so that such errors will not happen. Large amount of disambiguations will be done based on the context and domain right at the start when we are doing trainings. So, but we must always keep in mind that machines will still falter. And when machines falter, they do not know the nature of mistakes that they are making. A human being can make mistakes, but will not make it embarrassing or vulgar or stuff like that. But when a machine makes mistake, it doesn't know what is the nature of the mistake that it is making. So it can be embarrassing, it can be terrible, and so on and so forth. There is no point mocking it, but we need to be aware, what strength of a machine that we can use.
I appreciate. Thanks for elaborating on that. If you could also, see, obviously, I personally feel that was Aadhaar, and then after that it was UPI, and I personally feel that this is the next milestone, in terms of enabling the whole masses, and especially as you rightly said, more than 700 or odd 800 million people who are less than 30-35 years, and those are the ones who are the consumers, which most of the industry, right, whether it's media, telecom, or every other industry, BFSI, obviously, everyone would like to tap and check, and see that how they activate their products in a way which is more meaningful to the local masses and things like that. So looking at that, right, when it comes to say multilingual voice searches, how do you handle that? Is there something Reverie has an experience in? When you want to share on that front, how do you really work on multilingual, say, voice search?
Sure. So multilingual voice search is actually a very interesting but a very unique problem for India as well. India has got majority of the Indians, they speak more than one language. 2 or 3 is our general average. So when people speak in India, they do not state the language in which they are likely to speak, but they would actually end up mixing languages right on the flow as they speak. So when we are trying to search on the internet itself is also very skewed in terms of the information that is available, majority being in English and then in other languages. So somebody who understands 3 languages and wants to make a search is right now agnostic, would probably speak out a search in their native language, but want to be able to retrieve some information that might be in one of the other languages that they may know. So we try and normalize a lot of this. Even our indexing algorithms take care of all of that. We use multiple different technologies when it comes to whether somebody is looking for an entity, what to use, and if somebody is actually stating something as a question, then that needs interpretation, so on and so forth. And then we try and retrieve information accordingly and present it in the language of one's choice.
Got that. I think really appreciate. I think you have covered almost all the aspects, of this very exciting enabler. I personally feel, and I'm sure. Would you want to just quickly share in terms of typically by any verticals, how we would like to have, or what is your advice, say for media, because there's huge amount of contents, right? I mean, there are some 20 types of contents which they would like to monetize or utilize. Likewise, BFSI, obviously you covered some of them, or even healthcare for that matter, right? Pharma and healthcare. That's another huge domain I personally feel, which can be enabled through multilingual support and local language support. So if you may want to quickly share in terms of where all you see the adoption coming up in these various words.
Yeah, sure. So it has been a misnomer. It has been a misnomer that providing e-commerce or government services in local languages would be the most important ones to do. And that is the reason why there has been a lot of focus also in trying to create some amount of multilingual services around e-commerce, of course, because that also directly offers commerce, right? But you and I, we use the internet every day, but probably not buying stuff every day. Whereas, so the kind of usage that we all do, that is sort of varied. Healthcare has been one of the most searched domain on the internet. So definitely healthcare has been a very, very large domain where, Indian consumers are definitely hungry for it. Everybody has got the same kind of needs, but it's just that, the availability is poor. So that is a very important domain. The second one obviously is banking. And the third one, I would say education is a very big domain. So education has been actually growing right now, with more and more youngsters becoming aware that they can search and find information. Today, exactly like you and I, whenever we have curiosity, every human being has curiosity, we try and quench our curiosity thirst only by searching for knowledge on the internet. So the knowledge or the education is an area which is among the largest growing. And after that, subsequently come all the other domains.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, very likely. I also agree to what you said. I think that has been our observation also. But I'm sure, because across the media as well, that is something which today everyone is trying to tap through the local language, and that is another area. Okay. There were some questions in terms of what are the typical accuracy levels, what is your observation, how does it move, or how do you address that? I mean, in numbers or percentages.
Yeah, so accuracy levels definitely vary from, I would say, technology to technology, and language to language. For example, machine translation accuracies at 70 to 80% is good. Sometimes in certain domains, you will be able to get upwards of 90% accuracy. that is considered to be very good. Voice accuracies, you cannot have a voice solution deployed unless you actually have upwards of 80 to 90% accuracy. So yes. So, but for languages that have got better resources, the accuracies will always be better. The languages which do not have as good resources will be slightly poorer. But the thing is that as people start using these technologies, they are fed back into machine learning, and they become a lot more accurate for those domains very, very rapidly. So I would say that any accuracy for a voice solution that is about 70 to 80% is already something that we must be deployed for businesses.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks. I guess, I can just, we can just allow a minute or two for anyone who may want to ask any questions, please. Any last questions?
Yeah, so Uday, you touched upon UPI, right? So why UPI was so much of a revolution, right? It was the ease of using it, right? And even then, UPI today hasn't reached to everyone, right? So there's one interesting use case. Maybe some people might benefit from knowing it. So Reverie is working with one of our partners to enable UPI for people who do not have an internet connection through the medium of a missed call. Basically, we are working with a partner where you just need to send a missed call to a number, and then there is an automated call which uses technology basically to do that automated voice. An automated call comes in, and you need to just punch in certain numbers and your PIN, and it can happen. So even if you don't have an internet connection at a certain point of time, you can still make UPI happen. So I just wanted to touch upon that one for the use case per se, and also for putting the point that if you want to make something adopted, right, I think you'll have to keep looking at making it easier and easier for people to use, and that will only happen once we start having people using it. There's always this talk about, say, accuracies. What is the starting accuracy, and how can we start off with something like that? But unless you start, right, it's not going to improve. I'll just take a case in point about certain thing which I had experienced myself. I used to work with a lot of Chinese vendors earlier, some 10 years back, and they used to use translators, right? They used to use translators even back then, me being from a tech background, so I had to converse with some of their techies, right? So whatever I would write to them in a chat application, they would take it and put it on a say on something which would convert. And obviously, China being China, they use something from themselves. They didn't depend on Google and all, right? So and that converter used to give pretty poor accuracy. So although it would be sufficient enough for us when we are conversing, we got used to that okay, we need to write very short, precise, concise sentences so that my counterparts understand. And later on, when I realized that they were doing it through this sort of a converter, I then started realizing that it is because of the machine's limitation that if I write concise sentences, smaller sentences, they are able to understand. It's not that human is interpreting it. He's putting it to the machine. Machine is interpreting this the simpler sentences better, which made him understand it better, and he could write his response, and then the response would be translated and he would send it back. Many a times the response had a lot of grammatical sort of errors, but we could make out what was the meaning because we were discussing technical things, right? So but having said that, while that started off there, but if you look at any Chinese people using any translator for any sort of communication today, those are top notch. Like the quality will be very good, and it has gone through different phases where people have used it, and then it has gone through different stages of learning to get there, right? So for our Indian languages to also reach there, we will need to go through some stage where we will have to deal with things which are not optimal. Right? So we can't always look at the optimal solution to start off something.
Oh no, I personally believe whatever you said, see, the user journey will decide the adoption, and the more intelligent user journey you start thinking about as to how the user thinks and where all it is going to be very critical. And typically using that 80-20 rule, I personally believe that you can have a very high impact use cases come out of that whole, I would say exercise. And that's what I think we also at Incubator, we generally do that whole use case discovery, right? I mean,
Right.
And we identify what are the high impact use cases. And that's where I think, typically working with partners like you, we are happy to really, enable our prospective customers on that front. So anyone, if you have any questions or you may want to reach out to, you have given email IDs in the chat, as well as if you may want to share, Vivek and Pranjal, in terms of your contact here, happy to do that. Please go ahead and share so that people can reach out to you.
I'm sharing my email ID. If anybody has any queries or anything related to some business, I think they can definitely reach out to me. I'll make sure that I can connect you with the right folks within the organization, right? So let's not spam Vivek's email. I think I
know that's good enough.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Happy
You could reach
receiving
out to Shauman or me or Pranjal, anyone, please feel free. Really appreciate your time,
Thank you.
having really shared the capabilities and the work we are doing. That's really awesome. And we will continue to work very closely with you and your team, Vivek and Pranjal. So thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Uday.
Thank you, Uday, for having us here.
Thank you.
Right.